Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Emerging Niger Brands podcast. I trust you're doing great. On today's episode, we're having a wonderful guest on board who will be sharing with us everything that's got to do with building startups for scalability and not just shut down after all within 5 years. Beyond just the business launch, what entrepreneurs must know and do for their startup to try. So, fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be an amazing and exciting podcast listen or podcast watch, depending on the medium you're watching or listening. Before we go further, do well to hit the notification bell on the YouTube if you're yet to, or subscribe if you're yet to. And if you're a returning listener, welcome on board. So we'll just get about to get started. Hello everyone, how are you? We're going to be looking at beyond business launch, what entrepreneurs must know and do to ensure that their startups run successfully. And I have with me on the show today Mr. Patrick Ndifon. Mr. Patrick Ndifon is a dynamic tech-savvy product manager and visionary ecosystem builder. He's passionately driving innovation within African continental free trade zone. Ladies and gentlemen, try to welcome Mr. Patrick Ndifon. Welcome, sir. Welcome on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. I hope we're doing well.
Welcome. So, just tell us briefly about Mr. Patrick, just as relates to product management, startup development. Let's get to hear from you, please.
Okay, so I've been a product manager for about 3 years, going to 4 years now. And how I got into product management was because I run a nonprofit that is works towards developing entrepreneurial ecosystem. So our work is majorly across River State, and my first startup I built was a fashion e-commerce brand. It later crashed, and that kind of pushed me to begin to research why it failed, and that's how I now stumbled onto product management. So for about a decade, I have gathered as many skills and disciplines as I could to just help me ensure that I don't make the same mistakes I made earlier, and to also advise other startups on how they can build successful businesses. So yeah,
wow,
that's pretty much
great, inspiring. Okay, that makes you an ideal candidate to speak on this topic. Thank you. Welcome on board. So, what would you say is the makeup of a startup? The outlook of the future of a startup?
Okay, so when you talk about startups, all right, you're looking at businesses that are highly innovative. Okay, innovation is really about making things better, faster, cheaper, easier, more convenient, and all that. So startups are highly innovative. One, they have high growth rate, meaning they grow very quickly, as opposed to normal businesses like SMEs and the likes. Startups are also very scalable. Okay, so a business that can grow and sort of like affect a large number of target audience, those are usually similar, like startups. Basically, startups are usually those things. They have those characteristics, and startups also try to solve a unique problem or address a specific need within society. So they are very niche in a way, right, where they're trying to address a very complex or unique pain point or a particular need. So those are some of the traits of a startup, And if I were to add, right, we usually have the visions are very big, very strong visions and a strong culture of experimentation.
I used to think that every business that's on its early phase of development is actually a startup. Wow. So based on this,
Well, Okay, so yes, oftentimes that term is used to refer to startups in early stages. So the startups I talked about, yes, they are early stage businesses, but you can have businesses in the early stages that are not startups. So somebody opening a supermarket in the first 2 years can be a startup, right? But in the sense that it's early stage. But what the term startup really is, highly innovative businesses. A lot of times they are tech enabled or they are core tech themselves, all right? And then they are businesses that they're supposed to have a high growth rate, meaning that they should grow rapidly. A supermarket doesn't necessarily have to have a high growth rate. Okay, it can just take its time and grow and all of that. And it's not exactly solving a unique or specific problem within the industry. But startups are they're focused on solving a unique problem or addressing a specific need.
Wow. How would you look at a startup and say, oh, this startup is either headed for success or failure?
Okay, well, you so it'll be hard to there's a limit to how I can assess that startup from the outside. All right, I would have to have for my assessment to be accurate, all right, or more precise, I would probably need to get more internal information on maybe their financials and other things within the startup itself. But there are some indicators that you can look at from the outside. So successful startups are very obsessed about customers and customer feedback. So they don't take it they don't take it lightly. They invest a lot in getting to know their customers in depthly, to know their customers intimately. They're trying to figure out what are the customers' pain points, what are their challenges, and they're constantly adjusting and adapting to meet the customers' behavior and needs. Again, successful startups are very tenuous discovery, where they're constantly researching the market, constantly researching the market, constantly trying out new ideas, new features. Again, it's still in connection with the customer feedback. So they're constantly experimenting and trying to, what they're trying to achieve is what they call a product market fit, right? A market fit where whatever it is that they're building strongly resonates with the market that they're building for. They're very agile. Startups are agile in the sense that a successful startup that is agile operates like this. If there's a change in the market and that change is a significant change, they would have put things in place to ensure that they can quickly adjust with the way the market is changing.
So in this case, you can say something like there are prerequisites to launching a successful startup.
Yeah, definitely. In our in our environment, people we place a lot of emphasis on big ideas. We want to change the world, and we want to do all those kinds of things. But no matter how great the ambition is, if your startup is not grounded in deep market research, then you might end up solving a solution that nobody needs, or solving a problem rather that nobody needs. So first, you need to have a severe, you need to identify a severe problem that affects a mass market, all right, and develop a strong value proposition for that problem. Um, it requires a lot of research to be able to do that. It requires a lot of testing, experimentation, and iteration to be able to get to that particular value proposition. Then you also have to you have to have a good, I don't want to call it business plan, but a plan to sort of like a roadmap. Let me put it that way, to sort of guide the entire process of building your startup from the idea stage all the way to product market fit or wherever it is you want to go. So nothing too detailed, at least just something to kind of be like a compass to know what you're looking out for, where you might need to change and pivot and those kind of things. But I think the fundamental thing is deep research, testing, experimentation, and iteration.
Wow, but what you talk about research, market research, testing, and all of those things, it really, well, let's say it's really hard to find local businesses that actually do market research first or research first before we just know how to just launch businesses, all those things. So
Exactly.
this research, market research, I know is an alien kind of concept. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So sometimes you do the research in business and learn the lessons there. Yeah. So so what would you say are the key processes or growth phases that businesses should first, put in place before saying I'm launching the business formula?
Before you get to the launch phase, so again, it's important to do that market research, right? And in that market research, you're going to have to come up with ideas that are, that resonate with the users. So before you even begin to launch, you already have ideas that you can test and validate with potential users. So before launch, you should have users in place, at least some amount of users, because you can't build in isolation. You can't create things in your own, I don't know, in your own space. You're not the one using the product. Okay, even if you're building it because it came out of a need you wanted, that product will also be used by tens, thousands, and millions of other people. So you want to build, after your research, you want to be building with the users that you intend this product for. Okay, once you're done with that, you need to have a strong value proposition, and you need to have a plan to communicate that value proposition properly. So there's the research, there's the idea, there's the value proposition, and there's the communication or the messaging of that particular value proposition. So all of these things need to be in place, and obviously you have to have a good team, good team and team culture. All right. Why I say good team and team culture, because the team does matter. Um, because they might have run into challenges that if you don't have a good team, a qualified team, they won't be able to meet resolve those challenges. But team culture is also important, because when you're building startups, a startup needs to be able to adapt quickly. All right. And the culture, and that is premised on culture of experimentation, testing, iteration repeatedly. So when you launch, obviously there's something that said that no business survives the first contact with customers, right? So when you launch, you're obviously going to run into issues. So you want your team to be able to respond quickly and come up with different versions of solutions to the issues that they encounter as quickly as possible. And that is not necessarily about skill. That's more or less like a culture that a lot of teams don't have. So people sometimes encounter challenges and they don't know what to do next. Okay, they sometimes the way the team is structured in such a way that things have to go up to the top highest management before approval comes down, before people start building and responding to the changes and all of that. That's a very long process. But there's a way teams can be cultured and structured in such a way that once there's an issue, the immediate team that is, should I say, interfacing with that particular problem can respond quickly and offer solutions.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that need to be in place before you get to the launch.
Okay, so based on your experience, what are common mistakes that entrepreneurs usually do while launching or starting business, in their early phase of operations?
Well, Common mistakes, obviously, the one that we all do, great idea. We are very good at throwing money at ideas. So you have, oh, I just came up with this new startup. It's going to do this, it's going to do this, it's going to do this. Bah, let's launch, gather team, throw money, bam, build. No research, right? That is the number one mistake. No research. Number two, not being able to break things down to sizes, to small experiments, right? Which is still part of the research, because when you talk about research and development, it has to do with you gathering data, testing, building, and then testing and iterating and all of that, right? So a lot of times people just build stuff. They just build big things, okay, without first. So you should first have a sample that you're testing with a particular market, and then you get that feedback, and then you scale it again and you test with a bigger market. So that kind of development is I don't know, it's not here within our space. It's very rare to find companies that do that. So I think that's a common mistake. That's why you have people that get millions of dollars in funding and they still fail, right? With that kind of money, you shouldn't fail. No. With that kind of money, you should be able to test and know what's going to work and pivot your business to that. So that is where the testing and experimentation comes in. The third thing is sometimes people underestimate and overestimate the need for financial for finance capital, right, for business. Now, so in terms of underestimating, I hear people would say, oh, you don't need money, just start. You don't need money, just start. You actually do need money to start a business. You actually do need money to do your experiments, do your test, and all those kind of things, right? So some people underestimate and they just think they just enter and think that money will happen like that, right? Or things will just work out like that, or they won't need to meet any obligations. No, you need to have some money accounted for that you would use for the business. Then overestimating is in the sense that sometimes people don't start because they think they need so much amount of money. And that's usually not the case. Now, if you go back to what I previously said about testing and experimentation, you discover that your business can go through several levels of validation. So you can test the business in Calabar, right? And it might not cost so much. It might cost you 200, 300K to do a certain kind of test that gives you a level of validation, okay, for you to now build a product that is just right with the market, that can sell, one, to give you the money you need to build it further, or attract investors, okay, for you to build it, right? So you might start off with, you have 500K, and you're like, oh, this is not enough money for what you want to do. But you can use 500K to develop little experiments of your general product idea or your general product vision, okay? And with those experiments, you can end up building some level of MVP or some level of prototype that can attract customers, okay, at a particular level, or can attract an investor at a particular level. With that prototype, you can attract additional funding, build it further, do some higher level of tests and experiments. With that, as you keep basically scaling those tests and experiments, you're getting closer and closer to the more complete picture of what that product should be. So with that, you're able to succeed. And then the last thing has to do with regulatory and legal requirements. A lot of businesses sometimes ignore those things, and they get into the market and they're unprepared. And once those things begin to come to light, you see the business is struggling and they fail. So it's important to have those things. If you can't take care of them now, have it in mind that maybe at certain stages of the business, you would plan to take care of them and get them out of their way. So those are some of the common mistakes I feel some businesses make, some startups make.
Great. Okay, so would you say there are more, there are some industries that have evergreen opportunities for startups to thrive than others? There are industries that startups are likely to thrive more than others.
Okay, so now obviously there are industries that have a higher barrier to entry. Um, there are industries also that are more native to our economy. So, for example, I would look at agriculture. Agriculture is very native to us here in Africa. All right. And it's easy. There are a lot of problems within that space. And thankfully, technology on its own as an industry, okay, is able to find its use in multiple industries. So that way, startups can be innovative in how to solve problems in spaces like agriculture, healthcare, education, finance, manufacturing, tourism, whatever it is. Any industry can be good for any startup, anyways. And that you just have to look at things to consider. Sometimes a startup might have the capital to meet the requirements of a particular industry. Okay, they might also have they might be it might be of an advantage to them because they have the expertise for that particular industry. So you the I can't say that one industry is easier than the other, but if I were to say, okay, look, for for startups that are just starting out, that are just young entrepreneurs, for example, who don't have so much capital, then something like finance, fintech might be a difficult industry. Something like the gaming industry, where you have the bettings and things like that, might be difficult industry because the regulatory licenses there are quite expensive. So fintech is about 200 million, and the gaming industry is about 100 million, and all of that to get the license rate in those industries. And so in that light, agri would be easier, education would be easier, healthcare would be easier. Which other one again? Tourism, and probably manufacturing. But manufacturing might come with challenges where you might have to expend more money on equipment and those kind of things. Like I said, it depends on the capital required for that business. One. Two, there's also the level of expertise involved within the team. If you can have all the money, but if you don't have the right team, you're going to have a big challenge succeeding in a particular industry. So domain knowledge of that industry is really important. So the factors are not unique to all. It depends on the startup and its capabilities of tackling that particular industry.
Great. Wow. Okay. So we can't say, oh, there are industries that are more promising than others in terms of, it just depends on the nature and then the policies, like you mentioned, policies that makes it more easier
Mm-hmm.
for the market entry and less easier for market entry for other startups.
So yeah. So and what I'm saying is more or less my opinion, and this opinion is grounded on the fact that succeeding in any market, okay, requires that you do deep research and build on that market. Now, okay, so again, there are many ways I can spin this. There are many ways I can spin this around. There are obviously certain industries that may not really work well in Nigeria, like maybe the high tech fields. Um, I'm trying to look at industries within the US that may not really work here. The things that work here, agriculture, it's a big thing. Economy is dependent on that. Energy, obviously, there's a huge market. We have a situation with electricity. There's a strong need there. There's a problem there that affects mass market education. So okay, so maybe maybe education, it's easier to enter, but the opportunities may not be so lucrative, right? Because it's competing with the already existing educational systems that we have, which are vast and numerous. So the question is, and if you're building something that is tech in nature, you have to worry about the adoption of that particular technology. So edutech, for example, are people going to prefer an educational technology platform as opposed to going to a traditional physical space where they can learn? So I could on that regard, I could say, okay, maybe education may not be so lucrative. Again, it depends. Startups have to be very research driven. They need to really figure out what could really work with the users within that particular environment, based on their culture and interest and all those things. So it's possible that with that in-depth research, solutions that could be innovative could come out, and people can engage. So I imagine something like a USSD edutech platform, right? That something like that can be a big hit, especially if you're targeting people in rural areas, or something education related to that uses radios to teach people things in their native languages. So it still boils down to the kind of solution that you're coming up with. A high-tech solution may not be profitable, but if you can find a solution that leverages the existing technologies, the culture and all of that, then it's possible that you can unlock, let me use that word, unlock more opportunities within that space. So a case in point, for example, is Kenya's M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is a payment platform in Kenya, and it's being deployed through USSD code. So you don't have to have a smartphone. Farmers are using it. It's almost become the mainstay fintech application in Kenya, right? So you use USSD code to make transactions. Farmers can buy and sell their products using that particular platform. So you see now, it's not high tech per se, okay? It uses technology that is accessible to everybody, okay, to deliver a particular service and value. So yeah.
Great, great. Okay, so to sum it all, would you important key activities that startups need to start doing or put in place before launching their business formally, to help to
So,
ensure that business thrive? Yeah.
so I would now, I wouldn't want startups to think of a launch as a bus stop. Okay. A startup should go through several levels of launches as they grow. So it's like an onion. You're constantly peeling new layers, right? And that's basically saying user research, okay, ideate, all right, test. When you test, you improve, you release it into the public, okay, you get feedback, that feedback is a kind of research on its own. You come back, ideate again, you build based on that feedback, or you improve whatever it is. You test, you improve based on the test, and then you release. So there's that constant cycle that's going on, where you're testing, you're releasing, you're getting feedback, you're testing, you're releasing. I think in the lean side it's called build, measure, learn. Then you build, you measure, then you learn from what you measure, then you build again. So it's that continuous cycle. So startups need to keep engaging, and as you're doing all of this, obviously they have to manage their entire process in terms of, it has to be strategic, right? It has to align with the financial capabilities of the startup, and so forth and so on. And then they also have to ensure that they always have the right team culture and the right team in place to manage that entire process.
Thank you. What role does marketing play in all of this, in getting to reach the either users for testing or users for each of the phases of putting these products out there? What role does marketing play in all of this?
So you've pretty much said it, right? Marketing is, you can't build, people won't be aware of what you've built if they are not, if or people won't know about what you built if they are not made aware of it. So marketing is basically the channel that lets people know about the product itself, know about its value, its benefits, and all of those things. So marketing is very important. And marketing should be put in place even from the research stage. So if because what it does is that it makes people aware that you're trying to tackle a problem, and even at that stage you can even gather data to know whether this problem you're tackling is worth it, because there are problems, yes, but then there's some problems that people are bothered about. I'm not Nobody's exactly worried about the flies that exist in the world. So I mean, if you say you want to wipe all the flies, it's not that okay. uh so the problems that are severe, the problems that are not severe. But marketing can help you make people aware about what you're doing, the solution you're coming up with, the value proposition, which ultimately now leads to you attracting customers to come and try out your product, your service, and ultimately leads to you increasing your market share. So marketing is important. When at the launch phase, there's usually something that needs to be developed called a go-to-market strategy. So that involves a lot of marketing techniques, marketing strategies, and basically what it does, it helps you to take your product to the market. So marketing is very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick. It was great having you on the show. Thank you for all the insights, nuggets. I'm sure this is going to be educative. Listeners are going to find this very educative and also help improve their business journey. Do you have any final words you want to leave with upcoming brands or those still trying to test their idea and all of that? Do you have any final words, the listeners?
So my final words are we're not very big on customer feedback in this country and customer experience or customer service. I think that the amount of opportunity in those spaces is tremendous, and businesses um, that listen to their customers, okay, that take care of their customers and provide an exceptional experience with their customers, those businesses would not only remain innovative at the top of their game because customers are constantly giving them ideas on how they can satisfy those customers themselves. Customer feedback is very important because startups should as much as possible try to get as much customer feedback as they can. They should also focus on customer service experience, customer satisfaction, try as much as possible to attend to customers' needs, satisfy them, and also in whatever they're building, create a satisfactory customer experience. So if customers using your product or your service, the experience that they go through should wow them. All right. And if they can do these things, it will put them at an edge, particularly within our industry, within our economy, because that's something that a lot of people don't do in Nigeria, right? So it would make them more innovative and also put them ahead of other businesses and other startups within the space. There's a lot of untapped opportunity there. I've not seen a lot of businesses that offer an excellent customer experience and that build based on customer needs. So there's a lot of untapped opportunities there, and the startups that can harness that, those ones are sure to build a lasting legacy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick. Everyone listening to this podcast is going to gain value, is going to, get something to build and, scale his business. Thank you, everyone that took out time to check out the podcast today. I'm sure you got value. Do well to leave us your thoughts in the comment section and do share so your friends also can join us. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick.